Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and we've got the whole Community Broadband Network's crew in the Zoom lab to do this. I was going to say in the studio, but we're not, and we're not even in the same state, but we are all in the same Zoom room, and we got a lot of enthusiasm to think about what we said last year was going to happen and how that's going. I'm going to introduce everyone. I'll start with Rye Marcattilio McCracken, the longest name. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. It's good to be here with all of you. I'd like to just get ahead of it this morning and apologize for any low energy I might have. I don't know what kind of sociopath schedules a podcast recording the first thing on a Friday morning before Christmas break, but so if it seems like I'm distracted.
You're working next week. I don't know what you're talking about. I started vacation last night. I'm the one that should be complaining. And as for what kind of sociopath, I get that question a lot. We also got Sean Gonsalves. Welcome.
Glad to be in the CBN Zoom room.
The Mazda room. We got Emma Gautier. Welcome.
Thank you. It's Gautier, but
Gautier. You know, at some point I'll remember that. I mispronounced Ernie Staten's name, the guy from Fairlawn, the director of public service there, or the public. He's a director of infrastructure, is how I think of him. I forget what his actual title is. I've only mispronounced it every time I've talked to him.
Oh, it's not Staten?
No, it is not. It is not. He's not from the island of borough of New York. We also got DeAnne Cuellar, who's taking a drink of blood orange soda right now.
Yes, because I too am low energy this morning. And also on Emma's name, how can you forget how to say her name? It's also like the same name as a band with one of the most famous breakup songs on the planet.
Never heard of them. Nope.
Oh my goodness.
Nope.
That's
You're
impossible. It's impossible that you haven't heard that song.
I'm a sociopath. We got Christine Parker, who might not be able to say anything because she's laughing too hard at me.
Good morning. Yes, I'm also part of the low energy crew this morning.
Hey, I get up out of bed. I'm excited to tackle the day. We're going to go over some of the predictions we made a year ago for how this year was going to go. Review some things that were going on. The most important one, though, the one that's been burning a hole in my head is Rye. Did you make it into the office more than 10 times this year?
Oh, good question. I think it was close. I think it was probably close.
More importantly, perhaps, we hit more than 500 Community Broadband Bits podcasts. That was awesome. Of the numbered episodes, we did 4 freaking tribal broadband boot camps. I remember a year ago thinking about whether or not that could be done and how challenging it would be. And absent coronavirus with Omicron, which I got during the time we were supposed to have the first boot camp in January, we probably would have hit the 5th one or for the year. That one will be in January in Gila River. So that was a remarkable year. I mean, we're a bit smaller than we were at the beginning of the year. We've slimmed down a little bit. We've lost 2 great fellows that were with us last year. But we have some great core staff here, and it's going to be an exciting year. Let's go around a little bit, and everyone can just say, like, before we get into the actual predictions, which we'll get into, what's like one reflection that you have on the year? And I'm just judging by your facial reactions. Who wants to go first? I'm seeing Christine is ready to go first.
I was not, in fact, but I will. We made a dashboard. We made a couple dashboards, and it became a big deal.
Really great dashboards.
That's right.
I had a dream of dashboards, and I feel like y'all really knocked it out of the park. So that's wonderful. The acpdashboard.com is everything that I hoped it would be. And I think it's super cool and people are using it.
I'm surprised you brought up Christine, given that I think the word dashboard is banned in your house or has been.
It is. I have to use other forms of communicating about that item in our home. I have such fond feelings about it at times.
Yeah, but someone had to do it and it was you.
Yep, it happened.
Let's go to Sean. Sean, what's your reflection?
To celebrate the small victories. I think in this space, you have to do that because it can be frustrating to see the needle move in small directions. But so you got to celebrate the small victories.
So do you have any small victories you're going to reflect on for the year?
Personal? Not
No,
necessarily
ones that other people will
but
care about.
I keep going back to I guess it's the success of Fairlawn, and I love the story about how they were able to boost speeds. They have a great take rate. They're slashing prices, and I just love a story about $55 a month gig connections.
That 68% of the people in the town are taking service from that network. Remarkable.
Yeah.
Lovely story.
Yeah, I love that story. Speaking of Ernie.
Ms. Gautier.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on the dashboard. I think it was a pretty cool thing to put out, a big tool that I think we got a lot of feedback that people were using. I mean, I was just talking to folks from NDIA, specifically Abby last week, and she said, I use that all the time. We refer people to that dashboard all the time. That was really good to hear. I also feel like putting out tools like that is a good beacon for feedback and communication with other orgs in terms of how we think about what we're advocating for, how we like just put together tools like that, how we like figure out what's useful to people. I think it's really helpful to be.
All right, that's enough about the dashboard, Emma. You said that one of your best experiences with ILSR occurred last week. So how could that not be the highlight of your year?
Well, that was a huge personal highlight, but you said make it relevant to other folks. Yeah, I attended my first tribal broadband boot camp last week, and it was the highlight of, probably my year and my time at ILSR. Really, really great to meet everyone there, participants and instructors.
Get out from under Rye's thumb.
Yeah. Sorry, Rye, that you couldn't make it. But yeah, I had a really excellent time.
Yeah, last week was not the highlight of Rye's career. And it looks like he still got a little bit. Rye just muted himself. Still got a little hangover from it. What was the highlight of the year for you, or what's something you're reflecting on?
So, Chris, I'm surprised you didn't mention that we did 33 episodes of the Connect This show last year, or this year. I didn't know that.
So we did more than half of the episodes we've done overall. That's remarkable.
It's a little bit crazy, and a testament to the strange hold you have, mostly on Kim and Doug and Travis. Such that they are willing to just hop on a live show with little notice and even littler sense of what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, and I think definitely kudos back to Henry, who was with us last year, who's moved on to another opportunity, who set us up with that platform that makes it more fun and engaging and gives us the camera views that you run. So absolutely, I think it's been a wonderful year for Connect This.
Yep, absolutely.
And DeAnne, Ms. Cuellar.
I am just reflecting the last couple of days on the amount of community organizing going on at every level of this work. Just like if you have an opportunity to join like not only the in-person convenings, which have been so inspirational to me too, as Emma, the boot camps, the hands-on hearing and working with communities and leaders working on these problems, but just the massive amount of coordination that's going on in this sector. It's really interesting, and it's growing, and it's just really cool to see so many people involved with this issue. And it doesn't even matter if you get on a call and there's 8 people, those 8 people are getting stuff done. And then you can jump on another one. There's like 300 people. I think it's really neat how this is all building up to net inclusion while there's all this like kind of ugly stuff going on with Twitter and media ownership. And it seems like we're all in the right place at the right time.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And I got to say, like, I had like 5,400 followers on Twitter. I mean, they're still there. I took a break this week after some of the obnoxious comments from the now owner, and last night as we're recording this, a bunch of journalists got banned, and it sure looks bad. But having some fun conversations on Mastodon, and I really hope Twitter doesn't crater and burn. There's a great community on there. There's great people that are doing really interesting work. I've had so many great conversations on there, but right now I just need to take a break from it. So I spent the year complaining about the FCC, among other things. And so I would celebrate that the FCC canceled the awards to LTD and Starlink. I think that was a tremendous step forward in this year for not wasting money on investments that I think would not have done well by the communities that were intended to be served by them. So I'm extremely happy about that. I did not see that coming. I don't think I predicted that. I think if anything throughout the year, I was predicting the FCC would just punt on it and we'd all just watch it sitting there and nothing happening on it. So that's tremendous. But overall, I think my reflection is just there's so much money coming this way, and so much of it is going to the incumbents. And intellectually, I knew that was going to happen, but watching it happen still, it's a little bit hard. Seeing these companies that have served some communities so poorly and are poised to just raise prices, and to see companies getting billions of taxpayer dollars while they're buying shares back off Wall Street is gross and a total indictment of our political system. But at the same time, I think we are moving in a path of a lot more people having internet access in rural areas. So that's good. A little bit of back and forth there. There's a couple of other hot topics that we'll talk about after we go through predictions, I think. But we had a bunch of predictions, and I'm just going to start going through these. And I feel like I'm going to start from the top of the list that I sent out, that I gathered from our show a year ago. The most important predictions, I think, had to do with how many preemptions we thought might be rolled back, how many times we would see states that currently limit community networks getting rid of those restrictions. A lot of us were pretty bullish, thinking we would see more of them. Sean wins. Sean said 1, and there were none. So way to go, Sean. You won
right.
a terrible prize.
Yeah, exactly. See what pessimism gets you?
But you were also right, and this is where you totally get the credit. You said you didn't think it was going to come back in Ohio, and I feel like the great work that folks have done in Ohio, Fairlawn's been involved with that, Medina County, others who have done a lot of work in Ohio to make sure that the big cable companies cannot step on them and further restrict them. So Ohio will not be putting any of the federal dollars into community networks, it looks like, and that is annoying, dumb, counterproductive, and wasteful. But at least we're not seeing any new restrictions in Ohio. So that's pretty good. Any other reflections on the preemptions? People feel like, I feel like it wasn't really much of an issue. The state legislatures were kind of creating broadband offices and things like that. There wasn't really a lot of policy that was done this year.
Yeah, there's a little movement in Pennsylvania to try to ease some of those restrictions, which, most close observers say just, might actually make things a little bit messier and doesn't go far enough. But, I think, ultimately, most folks, even in states that have state preemption laws, aren't aware that they even exist.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to rally folks around, rolling that stuff back when they don't even know it's an albatross.
Right. We also see that, FAR Texas moved forward and is doing really great work despite having a significant preemption law. And so I think we're also seeing people finding ways of flowing around it in the noble tradition of the internet, of seeing censorship as danger or damage and routing around it. So it's not all bad out there. For new municipal networks, we've certainly seen a number of them grow. Behind the scenes, a little bit of a secret behind the scenes peek. We have been developing a new database internally to be able to track this stuff better. And we don't have a good count right now on how many new networks there have been. But I think next year at this time, we will be better able to track these things. But we've done a lot of work creating a nuanced database that will allow us to keep track of these as they develop and that sort of a thing. But I believe I said 20 to 50 new municipal networks, and I think that's in the range. Certainly not all of them are online, but I mentioned FAR Texas. There's so much happening in New England. I can't even count how many are in Maine. Vermont has gone so big in this direction. It's tremendous. Tennessee picked up a few new that are citywide efforts. Duluth is building an interesting network here in Minnesota. Superior is moving forward with it. New York State is doing a lot. There's just a lot of things happening in a lot of places. There's other places that we're leaving out that a lot of good things are happening. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on that issue, the year in municipal networks.
You mentioned Vermont a second ago. 10 CUDs at differing stages there in Vermont, covering. I think the CUDs now cover 95% of all the will cover all 95% of all the underserved addresses there, and something like 75% of the population total. So it's exciting.
Yeah, those are the communications union districts, and I presume that's pretty much everywhere outside of the Chittenden County where Burlington is. There's just and then several of them have broken ground. Others are still getting underway. It's a very volunteer-led effort, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see how that develops with the state support that is being poured in by the state of Vermont. Emma, you said the broadband label wasn't going to be enforced, and I don't know that we can rule on this yet, but I'm curious what your reflections are on the broadband labels. You've been our specialist on that issue.
A lot of enforcement and like whether the label is going to be well enforced and whether it's going to lead to good data about pricing and service is kind of yet to be seen. There was an order released in November, and it didn't have all the teeth, so to speak, we wanted it to have. There's a working group led by Josh Sager on this.
And was that Free Press now?
Free Press, yeah. And so a big thing that they were advocating for over there is requiring that the label be displayed on monthly billing, which would be a great provider accountability mechanism. That was not included. They're still working on that. It's not kind of the final order, but that was not included in the order released in November. I did go back to what I said last year, and I said that the label wouldn't be well enforced, but I said that the FCC would kind of roll over to industry pressure. And I actually don't think that's completely true, which is great. There were arguments that it would be too difficult for providers to make the label machine readable, and
it's hilarious.
which is an absurd question, right? Should the label be machine readable? Of course,
I'll do it. Just send me your information. Yeah. I'll do it. I'm not that worried about it.
It's a huge data opportunity, so why would we not make that requirement? But that was part of it. There was also a language accessibility part of it. Josh pointed out that there was extreme opposition to have the label in all the languages that a provider offered service in, which is kind of absurd also, but that was part of the order and requirements. And then finally, small ISPs are not exempt from disclosing information in the order. So I think that, advocacy efforts were not in vain. They definitely helped. There's some industry pressure, I think, that obviously came into play, with the deadlock in the FCC, that obviously played a big role probably in not getting the label on the monthly bill. That was probably a factor, but there were some good things that came out of that. There's also a lot to be seen on that. It's not.
And that's what I wanted to sort of hit on, was I feel like it's not bad considering it's a 2-2 FCC. But it is awful that we are halfway through President Biden's term and we have a 2-2 FCC. It is ridiculous. We have Gigi Sohn waiting, and hopefully will be confirmed before the end of the year. If not, will hopefully be confirmed very quickly next year. Just a very disappointing situation with the Senate Democrats and the Biden administration, and frankly also the FCC. We haven't seen Jessica Rosenworcel or Commissioner Starks, Chairwoman Rosenworcel or Commissioner Starks coming out and saying we need a full FCC, confirm Gigi. I think that they're afraid she's going to outshine them, and I don't know. I shouldn't be trying to read minds, but it's just been kind of gross. And you get a sense of how much politics in DC shape how all this stuff works, rather than what the market needs or anything along those lines. So I think the FCC's had a pretty poor year. I think we'll talk about that throughout, but did get a couple of key things right. So,
Chris, you've been doing this, a lot longer than even, the longest tenured one of us here. Is this the longest period you've seen this happen, where there's a 2-2 FCC?
Yeah, and I didn't know a lot about the commission prior to 2010, 2012, and I learned. And it took me a while to really get up to speed on norms, but I don't know the last time that the commission was down for this long. generally a party controlled the Senate and did better, and there wasn't as much polarization for voting for qualified people in the Senate. But everything's been weaponized since around that time, since I started looking at it. Really, Republicans really particularly led the way with weaponizing every vote in the Senate to try to drag things to a halt, and then. It's not that the Democrats didn't fight back or retaliate in different ways. But if you look at Norm Ornstein and others who are kind of centrist who have tracked this, they would say that the Senate's been ground to a halt by a change in Republican strategies generally. And so we didn't see that before that so much. Sean and I thought a third of the states wouldn't be ready to apply for the money. Now I'm curious how anyone reacts to that. Sean, you can go first.
Wow, that was really optimistic because actually only 11 states have applied for the initial or have been allocated initial planning funds. If folks recall or even don't know, so you get the initial planning funds first. And then after you get the initial planning funds, you have 270 days of getting those funds to submit the 5-year action plan. So there's only 11 states that have even done the first step in the process.
Yeah, and maybe half of the states have the Coronavirus Capital Projects Fund money now, I think. Like that's been...
Yeah, I think it's like 25-ish. Yeah, about 25 states have got the CPF fund. So really only, a handful of states are really ready to move forward and are on pace to get, I guess, BEAD funding in the summer.
And one of the things that I think we've heard is, and let's talk about state offices for a second, but I feel like one of the things that we've heard is that state offices are struggling to find people. Duh, everyone knows that. When they do find people in a number of state offices, they're struggling to hold on to them because this is hard freaking work and it's complicated and they're being asked to do a lot. And frankly, I don't think their pay is commensurate with what is being asked of them. So I think we're seeing more transition, which I didn't anticipate fully.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the first 6 months of 2023. We'll get a sense of, how many states were waiting for the new FCC maps to come out, and how many of the states that were waiting for those maps are going to quickly realize how useless they are.
I'd be interested to hear from Christine on this, but, I saw recently that Alan Davidson, over the head of the NTIA at the 40th Annual Institute on Telecommunications Policy and Regulation Conference, said that, well, he called the new FCC maps a bit of technical wonder, but then went on to express like some real concern about the short time frame to file challenges. So, I guess he was trying to thread that needle, which
let me say, Sean, I'm wondering about them. So I guess technically he's correct.
Yeah, right. But I think more to the point, though, despite his, being amazed at the first draft of these maps, he is really concerned about filing challenges by such a short deadline. I mean, we're talking, 35 working days with 3 national holidays in between to file challenges. And which kind of brings us to, what DeAnne was sharing with us the other day about the Texas Comptroller's letter, basically asking for the filing challenge deadline to be extended.
Right. But before we go to DeAnne, Christine's going to jump in.
Rewind a little bit to like the number of states that are not prepared for BEAD funding. And I'm just like looking at the map of maps that I put out earlier this year, and about 9 so far are not sharing like public maps of broadband availability. It's not to say they don't have something going behind the scenes, but it's not made public yet.
The 40 states then do have some kind of public map.
They do, but many of them are sharing just 477 data. So their maps are not nearly detailed enough to be, I think, really useful for these BEAD applications.
And DeAnne, what are your thoughts on relating to all the BEAD and the state offices readiness and whatnot?
I feel like I, as someone who's been doing this work for a really long time, like you, and am somewhat responsible for how we are struggling to recruit and keep these folks who would like to work on this issue. I have been a person who has been a naysayer, like, oh, they don't understand the technology. I don't know if they can do that role. And as someone who's been focusing on for the last year, trying to do public awareness around this issue, I was wrong. That is not true. And we should not be disenfranchising digital inclusion advocates from nonprofit people to folks that want to work in broadband offices. This work, like all work, it just takes commitment to the single issue and working cross-sectorally, and that is something that can be acquired with dedication to a role. So I think we as digital inclusion advocates can contribute to recruiting people that don't have tech experience. I don't think tech experience is necessary.
No, but I think an enthusiasm to get that tech experience is necessary.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I also want to say that I thought that you were saying there that you have as much experience as I do, only you are somewhat responsible, which is also true. So, Christine, you had suggested, and I think Rye edged in on this one too, all good mapping will be at the state level. And yeah, I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's gonna go. And some states seem to be doing a really good job of bolstering their own maps and preparing for these BEAD applications and filing challenges against the FCC maps. So I think those states are going to come out ahead next year.
Well, the FCC maps tell me that I can get a gigabit fixed wireless at my house. I went to the website and it said I could pay hundreds of dollars a month for 2 or 3 megabits of wireless at my house, and I could get a more customized quote. So I did start that process, and I have not yet heard, but I'm curious, and I'm curious how many cycles we'll still see these false claims in these maps, because the FCC refuses to penalize companies that engage in egregious misidentification of where they can offer services. Rye?
Chris, you don't think it's because all the trees you have around your house? If you just clear them a little path, then they could do that?
Well, I do actually have some wonderful ash trees, which if anyone who knows St. Paul knows that that's actually a blessing and a curse with the ash borer moving north so rapidly. I have good relations with a neighbor, and they have good line of sight, and I think we could work something out with them if that was truly an issue. But I don't think we're anywhere close to being able to provide. I mean, hell, if they could provide me a few hundred megabits of upload, I'd take it. If they were like, no, we could do 200 megabits symmetrical, boom, I'm there. Like, I'm already paying $100 a month and getting Comcast data cap and and having other issues with my 40 megabits of upstream, which is the best I can do at this house currently. So, I don't need a gig wireless, but I'll take something. But 3 megabits isn't going to cut it. Not for $185 a month or something like that. Come on.
Yeah. Yep. So I think all the good mapping is happening at the state level. I said that last year, knowing that I wouldn't have to do any of the heavy lifting because Christine would be around to confirm or deny it for me. So that's fits pretty well with how I like to operate. Just a plug for our United States of Broadband map, our map of maps that is continuously being updated by Christine. It gives you a sense of which states are further ahead and what they're doing and what their maps currently look like. And we are in the process of adding a new layer, a new row to those maps, which shows which states have filed bulk challenges already. So that should be coming down the pipeline pretty soon here.
The more that I think about it, and probably for different reasons, but I actually think I agree with the Texas comptroller that there should be an extension of that. Like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's like every state's going to get 100 million. Like, roll that money out ASAP and then get the maps good, and then the rest of the money you can kind of figure out later or allocate it on a rolling basis like they're doing with the CPF funds.
Yeah, but you understand why folks would challenge extensions, right? This just because
NTIA is screwing it up. I'm wondering why NTIA can't get its act together and figure out that they could get some money out before they use the final determinations. So DeAnne, I agree with you. Like, I mean, I think we don't want the incumbents want to slow roll this, and we don't want to slow roll the money to the states, but I don't want to rush through a failed process. So
I wasn't even thinking about it like that. I think that that's another good point. As someone who's always trying to get people to do things together, setting timelines is part of that agreement as a collective. And so we are one country. We're not 50 countries. We're a single country. And so as a collective, as a country, we're trying to get on the road to recovery. And this is a recovery effort. And so I understand the nobility behind the extension, because it's one way of saying, we're doing it, we're trying to do it, we're a big state, all the reasons. But you have to understand, for the rest of the country, it's there are states that are ready to go. That means those communities are ready to go. They're ready to get on the road to recovery. So I think that I'm not going to dig anything on my state because I live here, but I just think this is where we could do better in coordinated efforts.
I might have ranted once or potentially 2 times about how the FCC's had more than a decade knowing that we were going to get to this moment and refused to be ready for it. They've totally failed. NTIA does not have to have perfect maps before they start rolling out money. They know roughly where the money's going to go. They don't know the final amounts, and they can start rolling it out. It is their political decision to slow roll this and then to make the final decision without having very accurate data. And I just think this is very bad politics. It's very bad for the states. It's bad for people who need internet access. There's nothing you can really say that's positive in terms of these decisions, except that they're sort of like, we made a decision, we're sticking by it, sort of stuff.
I've heard from folks that have had early looks at the newest data, and like a comparison of that to the old data set, the number of unserved is in some cases double than what it was in the previous data set. So there's, like you're saying, there's no reason for them to like wait to like have perfect maps, because we know the numbers, like we know roughly what the numbers should be or are, and there's no reason to like not roll out some money already, especially to this like DeAnne is saying, it's unfair to make the states that are prepared wait. Some states have been paying attention and are ready to go.
Yeah, NTIA is making this blunder over and over again, right? I mean, we talked about this with regard to tribes, where the Hoopa Valley folks are doing 3 different projects. One involves a tower, one involves a data center, one involves building a fiber network throughout their territory. They can't spend a dime moving forward with those projects until they finish the permitting for all of them. And that's dumb. And that will make it harder for them to engage in the workforce development that we want them to do. It's counterproductive on every single goal that NTIA has. And it's just yet another rule that doesn't make sense, except that NTIA is deathly afraid of the problem with Solyndra, right? Which is that they just don't want to have a problem where, and this probably won't happen in Hoopa Valley, but it will happen somewhere where someone starts building a project and then they hit a permitting issue that they cannot resolve. And then some of that money might be wasted or might be used inefficiently. But you know what? That's part of the deal. Like, none of this stuff is perfect. If it was perfect, we wouldn't need government to step in and sort it out. So like, I'm tired of these people who are acting on the public interest, who refuse to make these hard decisions and then say, you know what, we're not going to get them all right, but it's more important that we move forward and we allow these projects to create all these other benefits than that we try to resolve every potential problem that could resolve before we move forward. Emma?
Yeah, just really quick. I think like momentum is very key, and getting money flowing is really important to that. I mean, I was just talking to someone at the boot camps last week, like in terms of tribal projects, like people are working really hard in their communities to be like champions and advocates for these projects and get people excited and keep people excited about them. And when there's so many delays, it's really hard. It's a lot of work for maybe even like one champion in the community who's like really trying to maintain momentum and energy around this.
Yeah, there was money where every tribe is supposed to get a certain amount, and even that money hasn't been distributed. We're past the statutory deadlines. And so NTIA is basically being like, well, we got to be really careful. It's like, well, you're ignoring the other part of the law that said you had to get the money out there. This is your decision, NTIA. And you're harming people on reservations who need this and need to get going. They need to get it active. And not only that, I mean, it ends up costing more money then because they have to figure out how to pay the salaries of people who are doing this work while they're waiting for the money that is supposed to be paying those salaries. It's a mess. And it's a self-inflicted mess, which is frustrating. Moving on to supply chain, I thought we would be mostly resolving supply chain stuff. And Sean said the fiber order backlogs will skyrocket. I think we're kind of in between there. I feel like it's not as bad as it had been. I don't think I've seen evidence of skyrocketing. Although if you're a really small company if you're a WISP trying to get, like 15, 20 miles of fiber, good luck to you, I suppose. I think that's probably is happening.
I did see a report from that Sienna has a $4 billion order backlog as of September 2022.
Yeah. And I think for people who want to talk more about this, we talked about it on the episode of Connect This that came out, episode 60 on December 15th. Rye, you talked about chip shortages and thought that would mostly be resolving. My read is that that's more or less correct. It's not perfect, but things are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so. I think people figured it out. Whether they took, lower bin chips or figured it out some other way. I don't think the chip shortage is really a thing anymore. Unless you're trying to buy a video card, you can't get a 4080 for anything these days, even though they're going for $1,600. So if you're building a new computer, it's a tough time.
Sean said that Starlink will be underwhelming, and I feel like Sean is correct, but I will put in my normal proviso, which is Starlink is still amazing compared to the alternatives in many of these areas.
Good point. I'll just mention that I've learned that Starlink is losing something like on the order of $20 million a month. In 2020, when they rolled out the beta, remember they were talking about this when they had like 800 satellites in orbit. You could get as much as like 50 megabits per second up to 150 megabits per second download. There's 4 times as many satellites out there now, and the average, according to speed test data, most users are lucky to get 50 megabits download, and that's dropping. It's dropped 17% in the United States and 14% in Canada. So you're right. It's 50 megabits is better than what folks in remote locations were getting before Starlink, but
Yeah, no, and they've instituted the bandwidth limits, although it is a very good bandwidth limit in that it is focused on peak time bandwidth, which is the only economically sound way, if you want to be fair, to do it. I have a Comcast data limit because I don't have much competition in this area. And it's ridiculous because if I upload a terabyte of information between 3 and 5 a.m. over the course of 2 weeks, I am not costing Comcast a penny. There's no issue there. And the idea that counts against my limit is dumb and just a straight up cash grab. Go ahead, Rye.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's burns me up so bad, particularly because I know that the Charter bandwidth caps are coming here. It's 2024, right? So it's a dark future ahead for my household too.
Right. Charter does not have bandwidth caps due to a merger agreement that they had signed previously. I had made a prediction that 3 big cities would be doing modest projects. That would be really cool. And that's not counting New York City or Baltimore. Detroit's doing some cool stuff. Los Angeles has multiple cities doing some cool stuff. Los Angeles County itself is doing cool stuff. I feel like I'm in the gray area there, but it's pretty close. I was hoping there would be more. Still hoping that there will be more. I said there would be a full-on anti-municipal broadband blitz in 2022. I mean, I would say that this Charter-funded campaign, the ABQ, Alliance for Quality Broadband, or AQB, is it's all right. I mean, in terms of like, it's not a blitz. It's a little bit unimpressive, but it is a hassle and fooling people around the country. So I think we're going to still see that amped up in the future, but I don't know that I can take that as a win. Sean?
Yeah, although it likely probably influenced a few proposals in Maine.
Yeah, it definitely did. I'm sure. Like there's multiple places where it's had an effect. But I thought there would be, more of a coordinated effort by the big companies. I think they're still watching and trying to figure out when to pull out the big guns. DeAnne said there'd be so much more high profile media attention on this stuff in 2022. How do you rate that? I don't know. There was some really good articles.
We could do a search, but I think there has been quite a bit of a high profile. When I say high profile, I mean that like outside of like those of us who like purposely look to read these stories, I think there was a lot of good attention and earned media on price. The prices that communities are paying.
From the markup, most notably.
Yeah, the markup and there's
LA Times.
Yeah, and a larger conversation about consumer protections. And I think that there was better visibility on how being poor is expensive. That phrase that I keep repeating, it's just like that's something that is easy to understand, easy as you can, right? I shouldn't say anything is easy, but the truth is like it is very expensive to be low income or poor in the United States. And this problem with the internet is contributing to it at the same time, while we as advocates are saying it is the solution for so many ails in our community. We're saying, here's a solution: workforce development, telemedicine, work from home. We're saying the utility has all these solutions, and then we're making it very expensive and very difficult for communities to have it. And that's a difficult thing to watch as an advocate.
Yes. And I'll just say, I feel like we've seen some national media from the newspapers and things like that done a decent job. Television media is atrocious, and radio has not been nearly as good as it should be for something that everyone thinks is the most important thing in terms of internet access being so important.
everybody's doing ACP enrollment right now. And now we're going to gear up and we're going to do like one more big Herculean push for it. And what the thing is interesting for me is that like we haven't come that far from over 10 years ago about how to reach people. And so I'm on these calls, meetings trying to explain to people like that we'll be using radio and we'll be using over the air broadcast and like basically old school community organizing to reach people. And they're just like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, because those are the people that are still not connected. And that is how they are receiving information, not just in urban communities, but also rural communities.
And let's not forget to further buttress DeAnne being in the win column on this prediction. The Washington Post did publish a gigantic story that Tony Rahm wrote about ACP, which got a lot of attention. And then we always have to we got to shout out Nate Benson. He's not a national television reporter, but he's probably the only television reporter that understands the stuff and covers it well up in the Buffalo area of New York.
Yeah, if we had 10 Nate Bensons, I'd stop ragging on TV news so much, just the local TV news, the national TV news. I'm constantly talking about how it's atrocious, and then he'll get up in my face to be like, "Hey, man, you hurt my feelings." And he does great work. I wish we had more like him. We have Rye said lots more at the Washington Public Utility Districts. I don't know how to evaluate that. I think there's stuff going on, but it hasn't popped up on my radar as much, and hadn't had a chance to look into it yet to get a sense of where that ended up this year.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a strange year in that we were kind of lots of us were working on kind of long-term projects that are nearing completion, so we can kind of return to this boots on the ground stuff, which will be an exciting thing for 2023. But I think we saw, even without knowing the full picture, a lot of good stuff happening at the ports and PUDs in Washington State. Jefferson County PUD is taking $20 million in grant money to do a bunch of work. 14 counties got $145 million from the state to do projects. Lots of those were partnerships, but lots of it will also be publicly owned infrastructure as well. And so I think they continue to be the kind of under the radar burn over there.
And let's not forget, actually, Chris, you flagged me on this the other day. Because of the PUDs and the infrastructure that they've built, Ziply was able to acquire iFiber.
Yep.
And expand the footprint. So more folks are going to have access to broadband because of the infrastructure that the PUDs have laid out.
Well, no, I mean, to be clear, so this company Ziply, which is a big company that's made up of mostly of Frontier's former assets out there, they bought a company that operates on a bunch of those public utility districts and was one of a more popular one. I don't know that immediately results in anyone having more access. But it will,
according to their press releases, it does. It's like going to be able to like extend the reach of iFiber and help them build out to more folks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what the plan is with iFiber, because iFiber wasn't an infrastructure company. iFiber pretty much operated on infrastructure of the public utility districts, and maybe they have a new plan now. I'm not sure. But I think
fiber to the press release.
It could be. I mean, Ziply, I think they're building real infrastructure. I never really understood their model of why they think, in terms of big privately owned private entity companies, why they're doing what they are. Like, I don't really understand what their model is. But, Sparklight, which is a truly horrendous cable company, I think made an investment in Ziply. Is that right, Rye? I think. And it was interesting to me that when you have a cable company that can barely, keep its network operating, when it's taking its own capital and putting that into another company in another part of the country, that's a remarkable statement there of like where you think you can make more money.
$50 million, not a drop in the bucket either. It's a strange, maybe it's tied up with all the private equity moves that we've been seeing. You'd think that money would be better served keeping the lights on for their subscribers.
Yeah, I'm no Wall Street analyst, but I gotta feel like that. To me, that looks like, boy, our management sucks. We're just gonna invest in this other company that knows how to manage a little bit better. Maybe one that knows how to send an email to the people it's intended to, rather than to people who are opposing you when you're gonna candidly say that we need to stop municipal broadband networks because it's the greatest threat that our company faces. Ars Technica story, wonderful job after an email got leaked to us. Sean, you said there's going to be more of an effort to cut the ACP and a return of the net neutrality fight, and I think
I was wrong.
I think you got a little bit screwed there by Gigi Sohn not being confirmed. So then the FCC hasn't done anything on net neutrality.
And frankly, we're the only ones really thinking about when the ACP will run out of money.
A National Digital Inclusion Alliance, Angela Seifert just testified in that Senate committee,
Sure.
and she made a strong point that they need to fill that back up. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few others, but Comcast and AT&T will be on our side for that one and pushing for more money to to just make sure that waterfall of taxpayer dollars continues into their shareholders' hands. So, Sean, you also had my favorite prediction, which is the last one we have here. 5G still won't be a thing in 2022, and 5G still is not a thing.
That's right. I'm going to quote Doug Dawson. He said the marketers have convinced everybody that the new bands of spectrum being used for 4G are actually 5G, and it's a pretty slick marketing trick to so that the cellular carriers don't have to explain why 5G isn't really here yet.
Yeah,
I think we should just call it Sean G and we'll be done with it.
So let's wrap up with any last comments as we reflect on the year. Any topics we want to revisit?
I'll bring up one, which is RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. I think it's something that's kind of flown under the radar this year. We're still doing some final tallying, but with the kind of high-profile involuntary defaults by Starlink and LTD, and the voluntary default of Starry, and Christine can jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're almost 90% of those round one funds having been dispersed at this point. And so, a lot of that money went to the big monopoly providers, but more than $1 billion went to cooperatives and cooperative consortia around the country. So I expect to see, in 2023, some real progress being made there. I think that's a success story that needs to be told for 2020.
Yeah, they are building. And even Charter's building in some cases, Windstream, I think, so I'm worried that they won't be building as fast as we'd like to in other areas. They have a long time before they have to spend those funds. But the Starry's default is fascinating. I don't think a lot of people saw Starry crashing and burning the way it did. Starry was the crown jewel of many in the WISP movement, I feel like, which is a complicated thing to say because a lot of WISPs are small local companies, and Starry was a giant company that was moving big and trying to, but it crashed and burned. And I'm frankly glad that we see less money going to so-called gigabit wireless, which has not yet been demonstrated anywhere except for like on custom-made boards that aren't publicly available. It certainly is not going to work in terms of most of the terrain of these rural areas. So, I'm sorry to see Starry going, but I feel like that was a major story of this year. And between that and the 5G millimeter waves stuff, like I feel like there's still a lot of people who keep talking about how like super fast wireless is coming, and certainly there's areas where it pops up, but there's a heck of a lot of people who aren't experiencing that. They don't have the right line of sight, the right spectrum isn't available or whatever. And so I continue to think that it would be foolish not to spend most of these broadband monies that are available on fiber. I think we got to spend it on something that's going to be around for a long, long time and has a more secure business model.
Something I shared with all of you, and just kind of timely with the end of the year, the FCC has announced the sunsetting of the 477 data set. So the dawn of a new data set.
Right, and not all of 477.
Right. ISPs will still be submitting subscriber data that they previously did with the 477 form. But the availability data set, they will not be submitting anymore. So that'll just be through the broadband data collection now. Just reflecting on all the workflow I spent this year learning how to use, and now I get to do it all again. Looking forward to it.
Christine, I have to say that if a year ago you told me that I would be more pessimistic about the FCC and the broadband data, I would be really wondering how that was possible. But the FCC is just such a mess on this. I mean, we're still talking about advertised data where there's no actual sense of that reality matters. There's no pricing data. It's not serious. The FCC is not serious about solving broadband problems or collecting real data.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions still to remain unanswered about this data set, and Yeah, people are really frustrated, even more so than with the last one, I think.
I mean, I'll say, Chris, I feel more optimistic this year. I think one of the silver linings to the disaster of the maps is we've got people like Christine. We've got the National Broadband Mapping Coalition. We've got Dustin. We got folks at universities all around the country who have stepped up. And I think a lot of people don't know the kind of Herculean efforts and the frankly impressive work that they've done to work around some of the data set size problems and other things. I think even in dark times like this, it's helpful to note that it forces people to step up and develop new expertise and step into the light a little bit. And I think we're developing skill sets and technical expertise that we didn't have a year ago.
Yes, and that's it's a very good note to I think end on. I do believe that I still hope the FCC will be shamed into getting it right some year, because I go back to like the National Weather Service, NOAA, these government agencies that are so important to make sure that we have accurate information about weather systems and other things, because so many other businesses depend on them. And the idea that if you're going to move into a new area or you're going to be putting a business into an area, not having certainty about what kind of internet access is there in the year 2023, and you're going to rely on a hodgepodge of academics and nonprofit people that are doing the right thing for their own reasons to try to like figure out that, it's a little bit not serious. I keep saying that, like the FCC is not serious, and we should have a serious regulator. So with that, it has been a heck of a year. I feel so privileged to have spent it with y'all. I'm so happy for the people that continue to find our analysis useful and help us with it and inspire us with the work that they're doing locally. And I hope that everyone has a great end of the year. I hope that we'll have some really terrific, optimistic predictions for next year as we go in. And it's been a heck of a year. So thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle's @muninetworks. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Hughesby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.